So I'm making this video just to talk about some personal experience with um, that I have with anxiety. I'm just going to talk a little bit about anxiety and also about um, antinatalism and ephilism, and just express just how I feel right now. It's just, I don't know, I just want to talk about life, like how hard it is for me, somebody with anxiety and depression, going through this life. The worst of it, the worst, it, the worst time has been the past 17 years. I've had anxiety, and it's affected almost every facet of my life. Um, I can't interact with people. It's very difficult. I can interact with people that I know, um, but almost everybody else, it's very, very difficult for me to have any interaction. And it seems like the older I get, the worse it gets. And I have symptoms that are very difficult to deal with. And I don't have any control over it. And I fear for my own life because I just don't know how much longer I can go through this. And it's tough. I think I think a lot about the future. I always have. Even in my late teens and all throughout my 20s, um, I was just constantly thinking about my future and thinking, well, how am I going to survive? What if I end up homeless? What if I can't keep a job? Well, back then I could never, back when in my 20s I couldn't keep a job, and I was severely depressed, and it was just horrible. I constantly thought about, the future and how it wasn't going to be great. And I lived, if you want to call that living, my life like that for so long. It's hard to believe. Um, I have to deal with people giving me dirty looks and, really, thinking the worst things about me because I can't interact with them. I can't hold a conversation. I get very uncomfortable and I come off as standoffish or, I don't know, awkward, weird, whatever. Things that, people would just characterize me as someone to avoid or someone to have scorn against. And it's just really, really difficult. I I don't know, and I just worry all the time. It just consumes my life, worrying and horrible thoughts. And the thoughts are not just utterances in my head, or images. I mean, all that is accompanied with, all that comes together with these horrible sensations, these emotions that make me feel like shit. It's almost painful in a way. It's painful. It's not painful like in the physical sense. It's just, I do have some physical sensations along with it, but it's like a conditioning. Like the worrying is, like the worrying is coupled with just horrible sensations, inner sensations. Uh, I don't think I have to explain myself too much because people know people know what it feels like to feel bad, to have pain. Um, it's like when you're heartbroken. Everybody, well, probably most people know what that pain is like. Except for me, like life is just like that. Just a continuous non-stop heart being heartbroken about life. And I don't know. I just feel like I just don't know how much longer you can put up with it, because I'm 33 now, and I'm just like, I can't believe I've even gotten this far. But that's why I am an advocate of, antinatalism and ethalism. I really shouldn't say antinatalism. I just say it because ethalism isn't antinatalism is sort of, it's known. It's more known than ethalism. But I'm really just against life in general, sentient life, because I know that evolution is not good and nature is not good either. So it creates beings that are capable of suffering, and that's never a good thing. But yeah, I don't understand how people can just have children when we're exposed to, in the news now. We have so much exposure, through so many outlets, the internet, the news, and hearsay, whatnot, of medical problems, ailments, conditions, syndromes, disorders, mental and physical. And yeah, people just are really careless and blithe. I mean, when when you're creating a child, when you give birth, you don't know how it's going to turn out. You don't know what kind of you don't know what the kid's going to be predisposed to have, what kind of horrible things can happen to it. Or you don't know what its personality is going to be like. You can try to do the best, but you can to raise a child, but in reality, you're not going to have, in the grand scheme of things, you're going to have very little control in that person's life. You're going to have very little control to sort of shape that person to be how you want it to be. But also, the world is so dangerous. You're bringing, a fragile, sensitive, capable of suffering individual into this world, and the world is going to shit. I mean, you have to deal with all the problems there are. I mean, I could just go through the whole list. It's a huge list. There's homelessness, loss of jobs, economic catastrophe, or not catastrophe, economic problems, political problems, social problems, climate change, natural disasters. I think I already said that. I read a book this last summer about the condition that the world is in terms of pollution, like how polluted the world is, and it's just amazing. It's not just the atmosphere, it's not just, the air that's polluted, it's, almost all bodies of water. There's tons of pollution. And in the future, there's going to be even more pollution, water scarcity. There's going to be a lot more natural disasters, threats of ice melting in the Arctic, and that causing the sea level to rise. So So that's going to flood lots of coastal areas. Um, and then of course you don't know, you know, that there could be wars. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more wars, major wars, because of all these problems. There's so many people, millions of people. I heard in a podcast, like, the total number, the population of France, which I don't know what that is, maybe over 50 million or something like that, but a little over 50 million, I don't know. You'd have to look it up, but that's the number of people that are fleeing their countries, either due to persecution, wars, climate change, um, and so they're immigrating, and they're trying to immigrate to obviously rich countries, or Western countries, countries where they're going to be able to find job and food and stuff, and other luxuries. But also, why would you want to bring a child into this world when, if you're fortunate enough to live in a Western democracy, or just a in a modern country where you have conveniences, and you're not going to go, most people are not going to go hungry, but you realize, you have to understand that people's lifestyle here in the West comes at a huge price. For example, our clothes, they're being made in third world countries, in like Asia and other parts of the world, and people are getting paid, really, really tiny salaries, where the only thing they can afford is just to buy food, barely. And these people are working long, long hours. They're basically wasting their lives just working, toiling their lives away. Chocolate, is something that you just go to the store, any grocery store or convenience store, and you get it, and it's enjoyable to eat it. But you think about it, and most of the chocolate in the world is grown in Africa, and most of the workers picking the chocolate are children who can't go to school. They're forced to work because their families need money to survive, and of course they too get paid horrible wages, and the job itself is dangerous for them. Same with other things. There's so many things that we take for granted, like the food that we get. A lot of it comes from South America. And again, these people that work in agriculture, they don't get paid very, very much, and they have to do really hard work. There's, our government, and also corporations go out to these poor countries, and they just exploit the people, and they pollute the environments there. There's mountains. I mean, it's a metaphor, but just mountains of technological trash, radios, old TVs, whatnot, computers that are just out in parts of Africa. Like, I can't remember. There was one country that was like imported most of it. I can't remember if it was Ghana, or I can't remember, but yeah, and just the land, you see these landfills full of just so much, just heaps, mountains of technological waste, because most of it is not recyclable. So yeah, it just pollutes the environment, and also there's a lot of workers in Africa who collect go out to these fields and collect to these landfills, and they collect anything that they see as salvageable, or that can be salvaged, and then they take it and try to sell it. But a lot of these people also end up burning it, burning this waste, and it actually releases a lot of harmful substances in the air that can cause really bad diseases, including cancer. And people's lives are really, really diminished, and people end up getting these diseases, or they end up becoming disabled or crippled, which they can't afford to do. I mean, I can't imagine being in that situation, how anxious I would be and how depressed I'd be. It just makes you want to cry. How does it not make you want to cry and just try to, I don't know, just absolutely. Why would you want to bring a kid into this world, after what I've said, and what I've just said in this video so far? It's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many bad things going on in this world. I mean, the list of bad things is huge. It's humongous. I used to love reading. I still, I mean, I do a lot of reading, because I think it's important to be knowledgeable and inform yourself of what's going on in the world. But I really don't even get excited about reading so much or listening to podcasts, because the subjects are just problems. Nonfiction. If you're reading nonfiction or if you're listening to the news, it's all problems. And sadly, a lot of these problems don't have solutions, or there's only half solutions, or not very good solutions. But the publishers, in order for an author to get his book published, then he has to end the book with a final optimistic chapter. Because of course, everything has to have a happy ending to make it sellable. But it's just not reality. It's not the truth. So that's just a video that I wanted to make. I know I kind of rambled on, but I just wanted to make a video. I started talking about anxiety because I just wanted to just make an example of how bad life can get for one person. But of course, there's a lot of people out there experiencing mental disorders, who have mental disorders and mental illnesses. And then to me, physical pain, chronic physical pain, that's a whole nother level. That's really scary. And there's tons of people experiencing that. Young people even. Very young people who can't lead a normal life because something happened, an accident, or they just genetically something went wrong. They inherited something, some rare disease or something. But the world is just so ugly, and I'm tired of it. And I'm tired of worrying and thinking about all the pain and all the suffering that humans and animals endure. And it's unbearable. The worrying is just the fretting is unbearable sometimes. And I wish I could just get a break. I get little tiny breaks every now and then, but it's just difficult. Just languishing. That's all I'm doing. Not really living. It's not fair that it's me who has these thoughts, and there's people out there who just don't care, who just are very selfish and just continue to live their lives like nothing's happening. Just just acting. Just putting on a facade to other people, acting like everything's okay. And they get home, and I know, and they, I know people worry and people get depressed. But I just don't understand why people just pretend all the time that things are okay, or they just live life like nothing's happening. They don't talk about anything. They don't inform themselves. And then just the people who have kids, I mean, what the hell? What is that all about? I don't get it. I guess they just want to, experience that, what they think in their minds is going to be a great time, getting invited to parties and imagining that their kids are going to be something, be whatever they can never achieve. They're going to achieve whatever they can never achieve, and that they're going to take pictures and that they're going to be better looking and all this other stuff, but they don't have any control. That's the thing, you don't have any control. You don't know what's going to happen when you have a kid. It could even start out well, and then life just ruins you. Or it could start out horrible, and you just end up, that kid ends up paying the price, and a horrible life is imposed on them. It's better not to take a risk with another person's welfare.